Hi, Charlie. Thank you very much for joining me today for Shots of Wisdom. As I was just saying before we jumped right now, big fan of your content and just your style, the way that you approach it and the way that I feel you always find a different angle to tell the same story or something that can be either straightforward, bland, boring. You find a good angle. For example, I think this is the video that you made last week when you compared the likes of MasterCard, Visa. I just felt like it was just so fresh and just so cool. I just really liked the way that you look at it. But so really happy to dive in today. But I'd like to give you the floor to, of course, introduce yourself, introduce Volt, what you do, and then we'll just take it from there.
Sure. Thanks, McLeod. Pleasure to be here. I don't think I've ever blushed at the start of a podcast before, but thank you for the complimentary introduction. I appreciate that very much. So yes, I am head of brands and communications at Volt. Volt is a real-time payments company, essentially powered by open banking technology, and we enable businesses around the world to offer pay by bank as a checkout option. So letting their customers and end users check out directly from their bank account, which is faster, easier, and usually safer than using cards, and those funds settle instantly, which is quite cool. And yes, I have been there for 4.5 years now. We're doing some exciting stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into that more as the podcast goes on.
No, completely agree. But of course, when I was doing my research, diving deep into your world and your space, I could see that you studied journalism. And then to go from journalism to where you're sat now, it's a big jump. So I just wanted you just to let me know what basically was a pivotal moment where you did journalism, but then you've ended up at Volt, which is a huge fintech, looking at 350 million plus. How'd you go from there to here?
Yeah, I mean, I look back fondly at my university days, 20 years ago now, McLeod, which is a bit scary. But yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately, I think a degree of cynicism here, right? Because I loved the people I was studying with, and all my lecturers were great. But I think now, looking back, unless you were gifted, incredibly driven, or you knew someone in the industry, journalism is not an easy industry to break into, and partly because the barriers also exist in terms of starting salaries, and I unfortunately wasn't gifted, I wasn't driven massively back then, and I didn't know anyone in the industry, so I was looking at kind of an entry level like newspaper journalist job, and the starting salaries couldn't really sustain kind of living standards in London. I studied in London, moved from Cheltenham, a place you know very well. It wasn't conducive to kind of starting a career, unfortunately, which is arguably a bit of a tragedy. But that was kind of 2008 when content marketing as a discipline, or kind of editorial-led marketing, was becoming a thing. So I found that was kind of, if not my calling, then that was kind of the next kind of logical step. No one wants to hear the story of my early career days because it's a long time ago and not massively interesting. But it was great in terms of using transferable skills that I picked up on the kind of practical side of my journalism degree, and using that in a kind of more corporate environment. And yeah, it's been fun. I think it's worked okay.
I mean, you've been at Volt now, so the last 4 years, like you mentioned, and within that time span, you've had, I think, two or three promotions. What's really been the biggest mind shift for you between just writing good stuff and almost just excelling at the craft, and then being accountable for the entire brand perception of the company that's basically trying to disrupt against the likes of Visa and MasterCard?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so when I joined Volt, I was content lead back in 2021, and I inherited what was a fascinating brand, but a flawed brand. It was kind of monochromatic. It was quite kind of alpha male in how it articulated what it did, and it was quite dense as well. dare I say, kind of a little bit kind of superior. And that, without wanting to kind of throw anyone under the bus, that very much reflected our founder's vision for the company, which is absolutely valid. That's why we got a kind of record-breaking Series A funding raise for the space that we're in, open banking. And that's what allowed us to start a company and kind of generate a bit of interest. But the way that we were talking and the way that we were positioning ourselves was flawed. It was based on the company's vision. And I kind of think if you look at kind of a brand matrix or a brand structure, vision falls under kind of brand purpose, your mission and your vision and perhaps your values. But what Volt was missing was the brand promise, what we actually offered and how our offering was relevant to the companies that we were trying to reach. In theory, anyone who accepted card payments from Visa and MasterCard. So, it was really kind of using that, 15 years or so of experience in content marketing. And as I've kind of gone on and become slightly more senior, having a kind of brand lens, which opens up whole other disciplines like customer personas, buyer personas, ICPs, competitor landscapes. I mean, all of this is also kind of exercised via a common sense lens, I would think. But having that experience and that skill set allowed me to kind of drive forward the kind of brand story and reposition us as a company that was relevant for our customers. And I remember having a conversation with our founder who said, look, I know what you're saying. I buy into it. Go ahead and do your thing. So it was good that I had the trust. But he was always of the opinion that we only had to ever connect with 800 kind of senior payments people in order for Volt to become a success. And I was like, I know what you're saying, but I disagree. This is why. And also, we're a B2B2C company. So if people don't choose Volt or pay by bank at checkout, we don't make any revenue. We can sell the integration to Volt, but we are reliant on actual end users choosing us as a payment method. So we had to bake in that kind of B2C or B2B2C value proposition into our content as well. And a lean kind of startup machine. There weren't many of us around, and my skill set enabled me to kind of pick up and run with that. And that's what we did. And, very quickly we became known and recognized as a leader in kind of real-time payments, and we all traded off each other. Our founder, Tom, had, this amazing ability to kind of command a room, was great at articulating the vision. We just plugged into that and kind of made it more tangible to audiences at the right time. So, it was great. It was a very kind of fast journey from going from basically nothing, like 5 people around a table in a tiny office, to, like a 350 million valuation, Series B, 33 markets across the world. All happened in the blink of an eye.
That's crazy. And to be honest, I think the thing that is probably underplayed in what you've just mentioned is from the point when you got into the company very early to you changing the whole brand perception and brand positioning, there's a lot of internal friction that you'd have had to go through, because some people maybe would have been happy with the way that the brand was perceived. So can you just give me a couple insights about how you navigated that? Because I know from just previous experiences when I was working in-house, when you want to change anything such as the brand perception, the positioning, even just the website, you're going to go against so much friction.
Yeah, I think, to an extent, it was a case of me being hired for who I am and my approach and what I bring. So, that's what Volt was historically been very good at, hiring the right people to come in and kind of operate with a mandate. And, their policy is basically be good at your job and be nice. So that we've kind of created this culture where we minimize friction in that respect. So, but then, you're right. In terms of that project, there was minimal friction, but there was kind of big friction, and then the little friction. The big friction was I need to change the whole website and the color palette and the value proposition and our kind of brand pillars. I just need to do it. Is that okay? And it was like, I could attempt to do an impression of Tom and his Australian accent, but I'm not, because this is a podcast. People are going to listen to this, hopefully. But then he was, willing to listen, and he got it, and he was like, you know what, this is why you're here. I get it. But he wanted to be involved at every stage of that process. And, I'm not just changing a website or a tagline. It's the whole kind of visual iteration of the brand. It's also the application of our products. Like, what does the Volt checkout look like? How does the messaging there tie in with the language that we use on the website and our collateral and our stands, the messaging we arm our founding team with when they do PR stuff. So to minimize friction, it was kind of bringing them along at every stage of the journey. And there were a few challenging conversations and a few disagreements, but they were always kind of conducive to productivity and coming at the right angle. And then the most painful thing for me was like the copywriting, which is kind of my bread and butter. But I took the week between Christmas and New Year 2021, and Tom and I spent 4 days together, I think, just writing the copy and just going through it. And on the one hand, it's great that he wanted to be involved. Obviously, founders kind of, they're their own characters, their own personalities, right? So they have some pretty big ideas. But, it's what a great week that is. That's one of the most underrated working weeks. If you've got in-laws you want to avoid, family members you want to avoid, just hunker down with the founder and do some big meaty work, because, the kind of, the any pretense of kind of, professionalism, you don't have to worry about. You can just talk on a level. I don't care that you're the founder. He doesn't care who I am. We're just two guys avoiding our families at Christmas trying to do some good stuff. I love my family. I really do. But it was like an amazingly productive but incredibly painful week. We both found it painful. But by the end of it, we got in a kind of content strategist who I knew from an agency to kind of come in and validate and kind of orchestrate at the end. And then, we created this brilliant kind of brand on the back of that. Redid it all in January this year. But but it was from a position of, knowing how long this brand had, how many legs, not how many legs, how long the legs would go on for. Does that analogy work? I don't know. But then we knew when we were going to have to update it, and when we did, it was much easier than kind of starting from zero. And for what is kind of a lean operation here compared to some of our competitors, I'm very happy with our positioning and our kind of market perception. So, long may that continue.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I believe most people's LinkedIn is either completely just buttoned up, like very, very corporate, or just basically trying too hard to be a bit edgy. But I feel like for you, you've practically somehow managed to nail this nice middle ground where, of course, you're professional, but then actually your content's easily digestible. What's your like internal litmus test for, is this too much or is this engaging enough when you're posting about payments infrastructure, which isn't the most exciting thing for the normal everyday person?
Yeah. So do you mean Volt's LinkedIn or my LinkedIn?
Let's go with both.
So for Volt's LinkedIn, I mean, the good thing about LinkedIn as a channel is that the payments community is very active there. It's a relatively small community. A lot of people know each other, and there's also like the concept of collaboration, kind of like the frenemies thing. Like, our competitors are actually innovating in meaningful ways that will, like, if one of our competitors drives adoption of pay by bank, that is objectively a good thing for us. So we're kind of all in it together, and we're all kind of living LinkedIn. That's a horrible phrase. I don't mean that. We're all kind of active on LinkedIn, and we're looking for success stories. We're looking for case studies. We're looking for meaningful examples of innovation. And this doesn't happen elsewhere. I've worked in the travel sector. I've worked for kind of in the agency world, and you don't have that kind of sense of community. So LinkedIn is a kind of base point, has a lot going for it. And then it's a case of trying with Volt, trying to be, I don't like, there are so many people who talk like, oh, you have to post 3 times a week and you have to write your sentences like this and blah, 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 blah. I just don't buy it. I just post. I mean, I'm in charge of the Volt LinkedIn. I just post meaningful stuff. Like, that's the litmus test for me is this meaningful? Will people be interested in it? Will it help drive our credibility? Will it drive leads as well? One thing we've had real success with, and I've spoken about this before, is bringing our PR function in-house. So I write the press releases. I work with the team. I work with whoever the partner is. And when we publish that to LinkedIn, which primarily the deliverable is for journalists, but if we create a version for LinkedIn, that talks about a specific use case, then competitors of the person we're talking about in the press release just send a message to us on LinkedIn saying, "This sounds great. Can we book in a demo?" So that's become a trend now. That happens every time you put a product-related press release out. I will get an inbound on LinkedIn, and then you're just suddenly talking to someone human to human and setting up an intro. So almost like renders, MQLs defunct in a way. In a way, if this becomes an organic kind of high impact way of generating leads, and then beyond that, it's thinking very creatively about what meaningfulness is, and trying to do things, like you say, slightly differently. Content design is massive on LinkedIn. Like the articulation of information is not very rarely you just copy the kind of carousel format of illustrating how a product works. And the kind of payments infrastructure landscape is something that, yes, is of interest to people in that landscape, in that industry, but it benefits so many merchants outside of that, and they might not know how things work. And there is a language in payments that people speak, and I've tried to break away from that because people don't understand all these acronyms all the time. And does that also then make us dense and unattractive to potentially talented people who might want to join us, but they're from a different industry, but they might have perfect transferable skills? So I'm thinking about all these things all the time. But if I don't have anything to post in a week, and to be honest, this week I don't think I'm going to post anything, I don't really care because I'm going to wait for something good. My own LinkedIn, I've changed how I do that a lot this year. I've noticed that videos just work way better. I've posted a few. It started with Martin Lewis, the money saving expert. He basically posted on X about pay by bank and how it was something that people should be very careful about using. So I was working with our regulatory lawyer on a kind of branded response, which we did in the form of a blog post. But to get people to that, I wanted to go freeform on my own LinkedIn channel and create like a character skit talking about it. And it became like an easy way to actually do a bit of truth telling. If I wrote that on my own personal LinkedIn as a post, it would just be like, yeah. But to have me playing two characters talking to each other about consumer protection, which is boring but very important, it kind of worked. And that's now spawned a whole series of things which I tend to try and be lighthearted and amusing around something topical, or explain things in an easy to understand, dare I say, entertaining way. So that's the kind of approach I'm going for now on my own LinkedIn.
No, it works. It works because even like the last one that you did, the Visa, the MasterCard, that was perfect, like absolutely perfect. Even loving the wigs as well. So definitely carry on.
Yeah, everyone loves the traitors, right? Celebrity traitors. So it was, reimagining Joe Marler, the rugby player, as I can't remember which one he was now. Visa, MasterCard. We had different payment schemes. So yeah, it was fun.
And then, just to double down just on Volt just quickly, and then we'll transition, because Volt's trying to do a big thing, which is going up against two giants, and Visa, MasterCard are huge, and they've practically dominated since like the 1940s, 50s. So it's a big task. And from your guys, from a positioning side of it, and the positioning that Visa and MasterCard hold as well within themselves. But then when you think about it, cards still work absolutely fine. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And just from a consumer trust point of view, people still generally trust them. And so how do you market against something that's good enough when your solution is objectively better, but requires completely changing that behavioral psychology of merchants and consumers?
So I think I spoke earlier about kind of our vision, our kind of founder's vision, and how that very much defines our kind of first iteration of our brand positioning. And you're absolutely right. It was very much along the lines of going on the attack against Visa and MasterCard. And, that was done with good reason, because card fees are expensive. Interchange fees are going up quite a lot. That money that a business receives from a card payment will take typically, 1 to 3 days to settle. And we live in the age of instant information, and and instant bank transfers with various kind of real-time payment schemes around the world, like the UK's fast payment scheme was set up in 2008. And so if I sent money to you now, it would arrive with you instantly. So why has that never been replicated in the online world, right? But the answer to that is because of basically the trust that Visa and MasterCard have. But if you break it down slightly, they're essentially I would phrase it as like a benevolent duopoly, whereby two private American companies dominate retail payments in a country that is not the country that they're in. And yes, there is the Competition and Markets Authority that kind of keep an eye on everything, but they can essentially, within reason, charge what they want with no meaningful challenger. And as brands, they're kind of invisible. So there's no, like, there are often scandals or controversies around the world's biggest brands, whether it's Amazon and factory workers or Tesla and what Elon Musk is doing. But Visa and MasterCard are completely immune from that. No one ever criticizes Visa and MasterCard. They're invisible, they work, they're trusted, but yet they have a duopoly. So someone explain that one to me. I guess I'm trying to explain it, try and make sense of it. So I think initially it was a fight worth fighting, because we are kind of, no consumer really cares about this, but we're democratizing access to payments infrastructure, and that really means turning your bank account into a payment instrument. And if you use a debit card, that's where the money comes from, right? That's where the money comes from. And credit card, we're not getting into credit. Don't spend money you don't have. It's not good unless you want to pay it back every month and get a mortgage. It's good for your credit score. So the opportunity was obviously there, but it was always going to be difficult. And I would say that actually, now we would never say we're taking on Visa and MasterCard, and instead we have to look at real world use cases where open banking actually works and is actually surpassing a credit card payment or a debit card payment. And I think you can break down what we do. So we do the PIS, the payment initiation services side of open banking. And there are two kind of main use cases there. You're basically paying for something. So you're on an e-commerce website or a travel agent buying a flight, or you're topping something up, your eToro wallet, your crypto wallet, whatever it is. Paying for something, yeah, you're right. The use case probably isn't that strong. It does work, but you're not going to get people en masse paying by bank. And some of our competitors, quite frankly, are betting everything that this is going to take off. And to an extent, it has taken off, but not at the rate at which people are predicting. But in terms of topping up things like your wallet, or it could be like, remittance, topping up your whatever business it is that you're sending that money over, that absolutely does work. The adoption is there, and we have, numerous merchants that are kind of benefiting from that. Because also with that kind of model, and also like betting, like if you want to bet on the Grand National, right, and it's an hour before the race, and your uncle has told you about this horse at 10, and this is, regardless of the morals around it, this is just a very practical use case. You bet £10 on that, the horse wins, and you win £100. You want to then pay that money out back to your bank account. If you topped up that payment via cards, Betfair or whoever it is, other gambling companies are available, will still be waiting for that initial deposit to arrive, potentially 3 days after the race. So the consumer's already asked for £100 to be paid out, 10 times the amount. And they will also be subject to the same delays. So if you're consuming like, I just want it now, I want the race is with Volt or with open banking, deposit instantly. I tried this. I'm not a gambler, but I won. It's 2023, and I hit withdraw and literally get a lot from your instant moment. So it's just objective. And then other use cases where it works really well. It's like HMRC, it's great, paying off your tax return, paying off your credit card bill. Pay by bank is just working, and the adoption has been absolutely with those two scenarios, because it's instant, but it's kind of presented to the consumer as the obvious solution. There's no open banking is not normally, so it's just paying. If you're on a laptop, you're just going to keep on going. Didn't pay my tax bill in full. Public admission. I got 500.
Oh wow!
last week. I thought, you know what, I'll pay my card. So you just scan it, QR code, it goes to your bank. The transaction is pre-populated. So
Okay.
so your data entry. It's going to, it says pre-populated, ready to approve, tap, done. Goodbye, £500. There goes my Christmas holiday fund. At least I've set my tax bill. So you have to tackle these companies in use case where it makes sense to
And then when you're taking a look at what's actually working right now, of course, you're marketing to PSPs, merchants, platforms across 33 plus countries, across all your channels, paid, organic, partnerships, events, whichever one it is. What's driving the most qualified pipeline for you right now in 2025?
I might have to think about this one, because what's driving the pipeline right now might not be something I want to reveal publicly, but it's basically, I've got to phrase it in a careful way. Maybe it would be okay to be honest about this. Okay. So there's two things I think that are kind of really driving our pipeline right now. One is, I would say, like, high-end luxury fashion has become a real kind of important vertical for us, and we're seeing some success with this based on our existing relationship with Farfetch. And one of the biggest use cases here is high-value transactions, and this is not a world that I inhabit or that I'm particularly familiar with as a consumer. But you can buy a second-hand Rolex for like pushing £500,000, right? Try paying for something that expensive with a credit card, because you're not going to have a credit limit that big, or a debit card, because your bank will block a transaction of that amount. A debit card, sorry, because the card scheme will block a transaction of that amount. But with a essentially an automated bank transfer that we can power, limits are up to £1 million as part of the faster payment scheme. So suddenly people can purchase high-value transactions online with ease, with bank-grade security, through a regulated payments provider like us. Just opened up this whole kind of fascinating use case, and we're seeing that also with kind of investment platforms. We work with some very big ones, which I'm not really at liberty to name, but people topping up £60,000, £70,000, £80,000 is something we see often. We're seeing this with automotive as well. People buying cars. I mean, I bought a new car recently, and from Renault, and I made a deposit there in the showroom, and he gave me a little piece of paper over the table with an account number and a sort code and an amount, and it's like, this is all manual, and then you have to go upstairs and check with his accounts team. We work with one of our partners is called Bumper, and they automate this whole thing. So they just put in a QR code in that situation. I still pay from my bank account, but like I said earlier, the transaction and the reference is pre-populated and ready to approve. So I know that I'm paying this large amount of money to this exact merchant, and the merchant can reconcile that payment instantly according to whatever car I'm paying for the deposit for. So we're seeing with the high value things and the ability to reconcile high value payments, that is driving a lot of pipeline at the moment in the UK. Beyond that, more broadly, this is probably a trend for 2025, is that the open banking or pay by bank industry is competitive, and a lot of people have kind of promised the world. We're seeing a lot of, like, a real large amount of merchants coming to us because they're unhappy with the service provided by our competitors. And that's purely because this is kind of an infrastructure layer that we have, but we have our proprietary connections to banks via APIs that allow us to route payments between banks and between accounts. But we also have third-party connections to those banks in case a connection breaks, because different banks in different countries have different API qualities, and different qualities or different standards mean that the quality of those connections is not completely standardized. It is in the UK. There is an open banking standard. In Europe, there's not a standard. Banks are obliged to create APIs, but it's not standardized because it's a block of countries. No one's going to be able to do that. Infrastructure is different in different countries. So we've basically built this kind of resilient kind of bank connectivity network, which is a real kind of selling point for us, and it's something we're now known for. We're kind of doing a lot of marketing now on Power Grid. It's kind of how we refer to this network, and that's driving a lot of kind of organic pipeline. It's something we are dropping into conversation quite a lot in pitches. So but purely based on kind of frustrations with competitors, I would say. So since the summer, September, October, November, that's become a real kind of pipeline driver for us.
No, that's really insightful. And to be honest, I think your competitive landscape is brutal, extremely, extremely difficult with the competitors that you're going up against. And I mean, the amount of consolidation that's going on anyway, with the amount of acquisitions that the likes of Visa are doing, it's crazy. But I think one of the things which everyone that works in marketing will do is fail a lot more than they succeed. So can you tell me about a marketing bet that you made at Volt that didn't work out the way that you expected it? So it could be anything at all that you thought, I've nailed it with this one, and it just flopped.
Great question. To be honest, I don't know if I've got one that outright flopped. I've got examples that didn't perhaps work. Okay, so one thing we did, because I like to push boundaries a little bit, and and occasionally it's a kind of a calculated risk worth taking. Basically, to give you a bit of context around the kind of market opportunity in Australia, one of our kind of core markets, the airline sector is quite big, or potentially quite big for us. And airlines in Australia are obliged to offer a non-card based payment scheme or an alternative payment method at checkout, because there is the problem of card surcharging to consumers in Australia. So they are obliged to offer something that isn't a debit or credit card. So that historically was a scheme called Poly, P-O-L-I, and that was run by the Australian Post Office, and it disappeared in 2023, and there hasn't really been kind of fit for purpose alternative. So I came out with a campaign idea called Where's Polly, trading on Where's Wally visuals, or Where's Waldo for our American chums. And I commissioned the cartoonist to create a visual of like an airport terminal, and Polly was the name of one of the gates, and it was closed, and there were cobwebs. And Visa and MasterCard, they had big red signs above their logo saying delayed, because card payments take 2 or 3 days to arrive. And then we had Pay2, which is the Australian account scheme that we are integrated with in Australia. But like everything was open and people were coming through, like now boarding, ready for takeoff, like all these kind of analogies or metaphors, which are quite useful. And then our head of Australia was kind of dressed as Where's Wally. That was the kind of the kind of visual link. But while it did generate a decent bit of traction, but my God, we got a lot of criticism from like Poly loyalists, even though it's essentially defunct. But we got a lot of LinkedIn comments kind of criticizing it, or like, and then it turned into why are you so obsessed with us, like the classic immature like Twitter replies, and then it's like, this is a whole other comms exercise. But do you reply to these people? If they've got an axe to grind, is it worth it? And I still don't know the answer to that question. That's another podcast episode for one day. But because of that, and then obviously people get nervous, like our legal team got nervous. Like, could we use this brand's logo? And I was like, well, yes, we could, because they don't exist anymore. And we're not criticizing them. We're just saying they closed, which they did. But it turns out they've got quite a few loyalists who didn't like it. I personally find it very funny, but and not everyone was happy.
No, so that makes a lot of sense. And just you just always have to be trying. You just always have to be trying new things, because otherwise best practices were just put in place at a certain point, because that's what works then. But then if you don't push it and don't stretch it, you're never going to find the new best thing that's going to work. So I'm a big fan of just trying new things. And sometimes in the past I've pushed it just a little bit too far, and then it backfires. But that's just the nature of it, because if you don't push it, you're never going to know. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And how many other payments companies have pushed out cartoons, in the last few years? None. So I'm happy we did that. It's a great cartoon. We'll have to share the link somehow.
I mean, personally, you came from agency life into in-house. Like a lot of people do that transition anyway. A lot of people either start agency house and then move in-house. Then you then moved, of course, to a high growth fintech infrastructure company. What's one thing about in-house marketing that completely surprised you, or was harder than what you thought from the outside looking in?
The varying levels of kind of interest or buy-in, it fluctuates quite a lot with kind of in-house kind of brand marketing, especially. If we're going through, because I also find that essentially I'm a brand marketer, but I would be reluctant to offer a definition of what a brand marketer is, because I think my journey has been slightly unconventional, but it crosses into so many different marketing disciplines, and product marketing has been something that I've just looked after here at Volt, but almost by accident, but through a brand lens, it just really helps because it's messaging, it's understanding with the product and tech team the reasons why we're creating something, breaking down the technicalities and making it relevant for the right people, which is exactly the role of brand, really. But the thing that surprised me then, I suppose, partly is kind of how transferable brand marketing skills are across the kind of marketing matrix. But yeah, this kind of varying level of interest amongst the leadership team. If you're doing something big and important that they are really, really caring about, it's like, wow, all systems go. Like, you can have like 3 or 4 leadership team meetings in a week, be drafted in to pitch the brand vision to investors. Like, all of these things happened to me fairly recently, and it's like, wow, all systems go, really exciting. And then by the same token, things can go quiet, and they're focusing on, a license application somewhere, something that doesn't touch your world at all, and then go really quiet. But then, you're just trusted to crack on and do what you need to do, and have the initiative to think objectively about what needs to happen. So in the agency, well, that doesn't happen at all. It's always tight deadlines. This client wants this, that, and the other. Busy, 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 busy. Do this, do more, work late. And, the whole point for me about doing the agency side was to be industry agnostic, find something that I like doing, and then eventually kind of go in-house. And in doing so, I've discovered that a lot of things that I wanted from that in terms of autonomy, access to results, kind of measurable impact of my efforts, these are things that I hope to get, and I've got them all, and that hasn't surprised me. But yeah, certain things about working in terms of those fluctuations of interest have been surprising, but they're pleasant surprises, and I actually appreciate the kind of changing internal environments. I think it kind of keeps me on my toes. It allows me to exercise different parts of my brain, and it's just the type of working environment that I want to be in. No more agencies for me. I'm done now.
You say that, but then I obviously started an agency, and then I went in-house like 3 years ago, and then now, of course, I've started my own agency doing paid media, and I just question myself over and over again. Like, I've left that world where you're working crazy long hours. I've gone in-house, and then now I want to do it again to myself. But I just looked in the mirror and I said, I love that crazy life. I love that crazy life.
Thing, right? It's your own thing, so it's fine.
Yeah. So I was just like, you know what? I like it. For me personally, I like the juggling different clients and actually looking to say, okay, right, what's that client doing over there, and what's working for them that I can take from that business and utilize it for the next client. But then, of course, one of the biggest differences is I don't have the level of depth that I did when I was in-house, and just access to the knowledge and context about the company, what's going on next. Okay, what's really moving the needle? Yeah, of course, I got access to like HubSpot, the CRM, but then that's still only just a sliver of what's actually happening. So you do lose a lot of the context that's going on within the company. So there's a give and take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
So in terms of what you're currently testing right now, what's got you excited? Whether new channel, new messaging, new format, something that you basically don't know if it'll work, but you're just curious about it and you're just playing around with it.
Yeah, so we're just integrating a new kind of AI native marketing automation platform. We have waved goodbye to HubSpot. We just came to the conclusion that it was too pricey and Not clunky. Clunky is the wrong word, but I don't know what the word that's one level down from clunky is, but it was that. And we basically found an alternative that gives us everything that we need, plus offers access to other channels and has a lot of kind of AI logic built into kind of paid media campaigns, especially. But also like customer comms. WhatsApp is built into it, and this is something that we've never kind of successfully nailed at Volt. So it's now something that I'm going to take over from a kind of infrastructure perspective. So we tried a few different, well, I did try, but we had a little look into a couple of different platforms and landed on one that is 85% cheaper than HubSpot and gives us more functionality, and that functionality is more intuitive. So we are just finishing off the integration. All of our forms are moved over on the website this week. And now I'm putting together a kind of ABM motion based on what our kind of product capabilities are becoming. And I'm like mega excited about how we're going to use this, because we'll be trialing new messaging to very specific relevant audiences about things that are coming to market that could be transformative for Volt. So, and via a new platform that is cost effective, efficient, and easy to use. So I'm mega excited about the next kind of 6 to 12 months, because this will enable and unlock, hopefully, a lot of opportunity for us.
I mean, I'll definitely be messaging you straight after this to asking you to send me the link to that CRM, because it just sounds amazing.
I mean, I'm happy to mention it here because this is not an ad, but it's called Active Campaign, and it's been great so far. Really easy to integrate, and can hopefully do a lot. It might be rubbish, who knows? We haven't probably tried it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be good.
You got to try it to find out, and then 6 months down the line, you'll be like, "Oh shit, we've chosen the wrong one. We need to go back."
Yeah, well, that's what I don't think it's going to happen. It's just so expensive, ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry, HubSpot.
It does add up, especially like with the marketing contacts. The more that you get, it just stings you so bad.
That's how they get you. That's how every, to be honest, that's how every platform gets you.
Correct.
It's just like, just do it reasonably, please.
I mean, just following up from that, more really on a tactical side of it, if you were to give me one thing that a B2B FinTech marketer can do this week to improve anything that you're currently working on, basically, one key nugget that you can give to B2B marketers that they can implement this week, what would it be?
I think it's a foundational thing rather than a tactical marketing thing. Like, genuinely believe that, because I'm a big believer at asking why, like the question why, and I think that should be kind of baked into not necessarily company values but company behaviors. And I think fintech companies quite often create products or have ideas that are sexy and they look like they're groundbreaking or innovative. And we're seeing this a lot with stablecoins at the moment. They've become the kind of zeitgeisty term in fintech. I think Standard Chartered have just launched a stablecoin credit card. I need to know how that works. But there are other stablecoin products where I've read maybe 4 or 5 press releases this month where so-and-so has partnered with so-and-so to offer stablecoins on so-and-so. And I've read them like 5 or 6 times and I don't understand what the use case is. So that's just bad marketing, because the role of marketing and PR is absolutely marketing. They're the same part of the same bucket. The ability to understand and articulate what a product is and why it matters is being missed en masse at the moment. It is a chronic problem. I look at some real-time payments companies. I won't mention. There's one obvious example. I won't mention who they are. But you go on their homepage, and it's not actually a competitor per se. You don't understand. It's like, what? Like, I can read the words, and I know the words because I can read this, but I don't really understand the use case here. So I would say, in B2B fintech marketing, there has to be this kind of back to basics. This kind of journalistic instinct of asking why until you understand it. And in doing that, there are much wider benefits, because you can prevent a product team or a founding team, going off and chasing the next kind of big thing just because everyone else is doing it. You can actually hold other teams to account and make sure the use case is there. And I think that once you have that understanding, and maybe the understanding will never there, and if it's not there, then I'm sorry, but then you've got to have a conversation with someone and saying, I don't understand why we're doing this. That commercial viability, I think, B2B FinTech is historically a very well-funded sector, but that money comes from venture capitalists. So these companies have a responsibility and a duty of care to invest that money wisely. We are not an experiment. Other companies are not experiments. You're not here to experiment and dream up products that you think are going to work. You're a business. So apply this kind of commercial viability to everything you're doing. And there's be marketeers who understand the power of language and messaging. That should be something that I think they should take on board and action. And once you have that understanding and you bought into the commercial viability and you absolutely get it, then my God, you're armed with so much material. Then you can go up and dream up amazing campaigns because you know exactly what you're working with. So I think genuinely think it's a real kind of foundational piece that needs to be done properly and is not done generally particularly well at the moment. And that's also because all the kind of industry jargon. But let's just break it down. There are no stupid questions for the RAF, but not really. So just get that understand why it matters, who we're going after and why. And that is also the best way, I think, for a B2B FinTech marketer to kind of upskill, get noticed, get promoted, try their hat at different things, get recognition for not just kind of being a request function. Got this new product, come up with a GTM plan or a press release. You can actually hold it to account and be part of a wider kind of messaging, kind of commercial kind of function. So yeah, that would be my one piece of advice, I think.
No, I completely agree. I think it's just going back to the fundamentals and understanding the clarity and essentially just knowing who your audience is, one, and then how you talk to them, how you communicate with them, and understanding the differences and the nuances between just that whole full buying committee, in the sense that the same thing can be broken down and communicated in 3 different ways, depending on who you're speaking to, and just trying to make it as relevant as possible. And then on something like the website, like you touched on, it has to be just so powerful, but so simplistic that people can understand it. But then I think it's just the normal thing in marketing where we know it when we're having a conversation right now, but then as soon as pen touches paper, get carried away with like all these acronyms, all this stuff, and then you put it on the website like, shit, what's going on here?
Yeah. No, see, it's an easy trap to fall into, but you just got to be aware of it, aware that trap door is beneath you. It could open at any moment.
I say, if you had an additional, let's say, 100,000 to 250,000 in your marketing budget right now, click of a finger, you've got it. How would you spend that in Q1?
I would absolutely invest in video content for highly targeted ABM campaigns. Like that's what I would do. Really high impact, well scripted videos with high production values that are designed for a very specific audience. That's what I would do for an ABM campaign. That's where the sweet spot is, and it's not being done particularly well. But I've got so many ideas. I do need it. If you've got that 100k spare and you're willing to donate it in the interest of experimentation and collaboration, then please do, because if I had that money, that's exactly what I would do, and do some really, really cool stuff with it, I think.
No, I mean, when it comes to the video side, I completely agree. I think I keep speaking about it at the moment. I sound like a broken record. Even on LinkedIn, I just mentioned just how powerful and how it's not just how powerful it is, but then how well it's performing as well. So when just taking a look at, for example, the multiple campaigns that we're running, we just see that on videos, it's absolutely killing it. Like the metrics are 10 times better. And then even like long tail, when you're just taking a look, okay, right, I'm building my retargeting list. These people are really engaged. I can show them this first video, then retarget them with a specific use case for them. It's crazy. Even just from organic as well. Even on organic, like you said, how you started making more video content yourself because you're just seeing that's performing better. And that's almost like the same type of trend that I'm seeing personally on my LinkedIn, is that actually, you know what, the more video content I post, it works really well.
It does, yeah. And there's an opportunity within that because so many videos are poorly executed. And I think wittiness and intelligence in terms of approach to production are massive. Like I've had quite a few like stock video based videos with just like a voiceover, which is probably AI, and it's just been awful. So it's like there's an opportunity within video, I think, to stand out by doing something that is slightly boundary pushing but hyper relevant. And yeah, that's 2026 for me. That's what I'll be doing.
Well, as we look to wrap up, who's someone in B2B FinTech marketing that you believe more people should know about?
I would say a lady called Ellie Sinclair. She just got married. I know her as Ellie Smith, but she's called Ellie Sinclair. She is she's now at an agency that, as far as I know, serves a lot of really cool fintech clients. But she was previously at Neum, and her kind of comms expertise and approach and ideas are like she's just absolutely spot on with everything like that. You know, I've rarely worked with someone who's just been right about everything and is so good to work with. I worked with her when she was at a PR agency back in the day, but she did some brilliant stuff at Neum and is now continuing to do some really good stuff. So her ideas and her approach in kind of B2B FinTech is pretty much spot on. There's no guff, there's no bluster, and she'll go on to do some mega cool things. So yeah, I would recommend following Ellie Sinclair on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, just to wrap it up, Charlie, is there anything that's going on for you at the moment that you'd like to either promote, or where can people find you?
So yeah, please please find me on LinkedIn. There are a few more videos in the pipeline. The next one features cameos from a snail and an aeroplane. So if that's not a carrot dangled, I don't know what is. There are no carrots in the video. Maybe do that. There might be a wig as well. Big fan of a wig. Really hard to get wigs on with this hair. I've got a net that pushes everything down, and then the wig goes on. McLeod, I can tell you're desperate for me to put this up. So I'm going to say
No, I'm fine.
LinkedIn.com Charlie-Gilbert, and you'll find my videos. Please critique them as you see fit.
No, perfect. Thank you very much, Charlie. I'll be waiting for it. I'll be waiting to watch it. But no, thank you for joining me on Shots of Wisdom podcast. And yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie, for the honest take on brand repositioning, failed campaigns, and why meaningful content beats posting 3 times a week. If you got value, please subscribe to Shots of Wisdom. New episodes drop monthly with B2B marketing leaders who are actually moving the needle. Feel free to find Charlie on LinkedIn. Either search him, Charlie Gilbert, or his information will be in the description. Check out his character skits with wigs. They're brilliant. And if you are a fintech marketing leader struggling with mapping, buying committees, targeting decision makers, or improving paid media ROI, visit humbleroots.agency for your free paid media audit. See you next month. Bye.